Shocking fallout, one championship ring, one finals MVP trophy, one massive contract, and now Jaylen Brown may be staring at the end of his Boston Celtics story. And the wildest part? This did not start with Jaylen asking out. According to the noise around the league, Boston may have already been looking for the exit door first. That is what makes this whole situation feel different. This is not just another NBA trade rumor. This is not some random summer headline designed to get clicks. This is about a franchise cornerstone, a player Celtics fans watched grow from a raw young athlete into a finals MVP, suddenly finding himself in the middle of a trust crisis with the same organization that once called him untouchable. For years, Boston sold the world on the idea that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum were the future. Two elite wings, two homegrown stars. Two players who were supposed to carry the Celtics into the next era of banners. And for a moment, it looked like the plan had worked perfectly. The trophy was in their hands, the city was celebrating, Jaylen was on top of the basketball world, but success in the NBA can hide cracks. Winning can cover tension. A championship can make everybody smile in public while serious problems are growing behind closed doors. Now those problems are no longer hidden. The reports say the Celtics explored a trade involving Jaylen Brown. The rumored destination? Milwaukee. A team looking for another star next to Giannis. A team that could use exactly what Jaylen brings: scoring, defense, playoff experience, and championship confidence. But the deal collapsed. And once a player finds out his own team was willing to move him, everything changes. The handshake feels different. The locker room feels different. The words, "We believe in you," do not sound the same anymore. Now, Boston has a problem that cannot be solved with one press conference. Jaylen may feel disrespected. The front office may feel trapped. Tatum is caught in the middle. And Celtics fans are left asking one brutal question. Did this dynasty break before it even truly began? So, before we go deeper, drop your city in the comments. Where are you watching from right now? If you think Boston betrayed Jaylen first, comment 1. If you think Jaylen is making the drama worse, comment 2. And if you want the full breakdown of where this story goes next, subscribe right now. Because this Celtics situation is only getting darker. How Boston and Jaylen reached this point. To understand why this feels so explosive, you have to go back to the moment when everything looked perfect. Boston had finally climbed the mountain. Jaylen Brown was not just part of the championship run, he was one of the faces of it. He had taken every criticism, every doubt, every conversation about his handle, his decision-making, his role next to Tatum, and he answered all of it on the biggest stage possible. That is why this fall feels so unreal. Because after a player helps deliver a title, the assumption is simple. The franchise protects him, the city embraces him, and the front office builds around that success. But in the NBA, winning does not always create loyalty. Sometimes it creates pressure. Once you win, the question immediately becomes, can you do it again? Boston entered the next chapter with expectations so heavy they could crush a locker room. Every loss looked bigger. Every cold shooting night became a debate. Every body language clip turned into evidence. And slowly, the same partnership that once looked unstoppable started to feel tense. Jaylen was still producing. Tatum was still the franchise centerpiece, but there was a feeling around the team that something had shifted. The offense did not always flow with the same trust. The defense did not always carry the same hunger. And behind the scenes, the front office had to ask the question every great team eventually faces: is this core still the future, or did the championship cover up problems that were already there? That is where the story gets dangerous, because once a front office starts asking that question, nobody is untouchable. Not even a finals MVP, not even a max contract player, not even someone the fans thought would retire in green. And for Jaylen Brown, that realization may have changed everything. The secret trade talks. The most damaging part of this entire situation might not be the trade request. It might be what reportedly happened before it, because according to the rumors circling around the league, Boston was not simply reacting to Jaylen Brown's frustration. The Celtics had already explored the idea of moving him, and the team connected to those conversations was the Milwaukee Bucks. On paper, you can understand why Milwaukee would be interested. Giannis needs elite help. The Bucks have been searching for the right mix of athleticism, defense, shot creation, and playoff toughness. Jaylen Brown checks almost every box. He can attack the rim, defend elite wings, score without needing every play called for him, and bring championship experience into a locker room that still believes it can win now. For Boston, the logic is colder but still clear. If they believed the Jaylen Tatum pairing had reached its peak, they could try to move Brown while his value was still enormous. A finals MVP in his prime does not hit the trade market often. The return could reset the franchise around Tatum, bring in draft capital, younger pieces, or another star who fits the next version of the Celtics. But logic is not emotion, and this is where business turns personal. The deal reportedly collapsed before anything became official. Maybe the money was too difficult. Maybe Boston asked for too much. Maybe Milwaukee could not build a package strong enough. Maybe Jaylen's side made the situation more complicated. Whatever the reason, the trade died. But the damage did not die with it. Because once a star player knows his own team discussed moving him, there is no going back to normal. Every conversation after that feels different. Every meeting feels calculated. Every public compliment sounds like damage control. That failed trade did not move Jaylen Brown out of Boston. It did something worse. It left him there with the knowledge that the organization had already imagined life without him when trust was gone. In the NBA, trades happen all the time. Players know the business. They understand that front offices make hard decisions, but there is a difference between understanding the business and feeling betrayed by it. Jaylen Brown is not just another player on the roster. He is a homegrown star. Boston drafted him, developed him, watched him struggle, watched him grow, and eventually watched him become a champion. That kind of history creates emotional weight. So when trade talks leak, it does not feel like a spreadsheet decision. It feels like a message. And the message Jaylen may have heard was simple. After everything, you are still movable. That is the kind of thing that breaks trust inside a team. Because trust is not built by speeches, it is built by consistency. It is built when a player believes the franchise values him the same way in private as it does in public. Once that belief is gone, the whole relationship changes. Now imagine walking into the same facility, sitting in the same locker room, wearing the same jersey, while knowing the people upstairs already tried to send you somewhere else. That is not just awkward, that is poisonous to chemistry. And it does not only affect Jaylen. Other players see it too. They start asking themselves, if a finals MVP can be quietly placed into trade talks, what about me? If a championship core can be broken this quickly, what does loyalty even mean here? That is why this situation is so dangerous for Boston. It is bigger than one player, it touches the entire culture. The Celtics built their title run on sacrifice, defense, trust, and shared purpose. But when the trust disappears, sacrifice starts to feel one-sided. Shared purpose becomes personal survival. And once a locker room starts thinking that way, winning becomes much harder. The live stream that changed everything. Then came the moment that turned a private fracture into a public firestorm. Jaylen Brown went live, and one comment created a storm that Boston could not control. When the season was brought up and the conversation shifted toward Jayson Tatum missing time, Jaylen's response was interpreted by many fans as a shot at his own co-star. Whether he meant it that way or not almost does not matter anymore. That is the brutal part about the internet. Context disappears fast. Clips travel faster than explanations. And once fans believe they heard disrespect, the reaction becomes impossible to stop. Celtics fans exploded. Some defended Jaylen, saying the comment was taken out of context. Others were furious, saying no franchise leader should ever speak that way about the player he just won. Sports shows grabbed the clip. Podcasts debated it. Social media turned it into a referendum on the entire Brown-Tatum relationship. And suddenly, the old rumors came back stronger than ever. Are Jaylen and Tatum really close? Are they true partners? Or just two elite players who learned how to win together? Did the championship hide personal tension? Did Jaylen want a bigger role? Did Tatum's status as the face of the franchise create resentment? Those questions are dangerous because they do not stay online. They enter the locker room, they follow players into practice, they show up in post-game interviews. They hover over every missed pass, every cold look, every possession where one star does not touch the ball. This is how a single public moment can reshape an entire franchise narrative. Before the live stream, this was about Jaylen and the front office. After it, the story became Jaylen, Tatum, the fans, the locker room, and the future of the Celtics all at once. And once the drama gets that big, silence no longer fixes it. Was Boston already falling apart? The uncomfortable truth is that this drama did not appear out of nowhere. Boston may have been showing warning signs long before the trade rumors became loud. After winning a championship, every team says the right things. They talk about hunger, they talk about repeating, they talk about staying locked in. But repeating is one of the hardest things in sports because success changes people. It changes expectations. It changes egos. It changes the way every opponent prepares for you. The Celtics were no longer chasing the league was chasing them. Every team wanted to beat Boston. Every night became a statement game. And when the Celtics did not look as sharp, people noticed. The defense was not always as connected. The offense sometimes looked stuck. The energy felt different. And when injuries entered the picture, especially with Tatum missing time, the balance of the team shifted. For Jaylen, that may have created a complicated situation. On one hand, he had more room to lead, more space to create, more responsibility to prove he could carry the team. On the other hand, the team's struggles made every mistake louder. If Boston won, people praised the system. If Boston lost, people questioned the start. That pressure can wear down even great players. And for the front office, a disappointing season after a championship can create panic. They start looking at salary, they look at age, they look at the luxury tax, they look at long-term flexibility. They ask whether the current core can keep winning or whether the championship was the peak. That is when cold decisions start. Maybe Boston did not wake up one morning and decide to move Jaylen Brown. Maybe the idea grew slowly. One bad stretch, one tense meeting, one internal debate, one trade call, then another, and before anyone could stop it, the Celtics were no longer protecting their championship core. They were preparing for life after it. Why every NBA team wants Jaylen Brown. Here is what makes this situation so complicated. Even with all the drama, all the rumors, all the frustration, and all the questions about his relationship with Boston, Jaylen Brown is still exactly the type of player NBA teams dream about, and that is why this story is not going away anytime soon. Because if Jaylen Brown truly becomes available, this is not some average trade market. This is not a team trying to move a veteran on the decline. This is not a front office trying to dump salary and move on from a mistake. This is a finals MVP in his prime with championship experience, two-way ability, and the kind of playoff resume that every serious contender is looking for. That combination almost never hits the market. Jaylen's value starts with his scoring. He can attack the rim with power, he can punish smaller defenders, he can rise up in the mid-range when the defense takes away the lane, he can hit threes, run in transition, create off broken plays, and give a team a reliable second option who does not need every possession built around him. That is a rare skill set in today's NBA. A lot of stars can score, but not every star can fit. Jaylen can play next to a ball-dominant superstar. He already proved that next to Jason Tatum. He can take over when needed, but he can also slide into a system and still impact the game without forcing everything through himself. That makes him extremely valuable for teams that already have a number one option, but need one more elite piece to become dangerous. Then you add the defense, and that is where the conversation changes. In the playoffs, wings decide everything. You need players who can switch. You need players who can survive against elite scoring. You need size, strength, athleticism, discipline, and toughness. Jaylen gives you all of that. He is strong enough to absorb contact, quick enough to stay with guards, and experienced enough to understand what playoff possessions require. That is why contenders would line up. Milwaukee makes sense because Giannis needs help that fits his timeline. Pairing Jaylen with Giannis would give the Bucks another explosive athlete, another downhill threat, and another defender who can handle high-pressure matchups. If Milwaukee truly tried to get involved before, that tells you they understand what Jaylen could mean for their championship window. New York would be fascinating because the Knicks have been chasing the final start piece for years. Madison Square Garden loves tough players, and Jaylen's physical style would fit that city immediately. Put him in a high-pressure market with a team that already plays hard, and suddenly the Knicks become even more dangerous in the East. The Lakers will always be mentioned when a star is available. Whether the assets make sense or not, Los Angeles is never completely out of the conversation. The brand, the market, the pressure, the spotlight, Jaylen in purple and gold would instantly become one of the biggest stories in basketball. The Warriors are another interesting possibility. Golden State is always trying to balance the present with the future. Jaylen would give them athleticism, defense, and a bridge between eras. If they wanted one more aggressive move to stay relevant, they would at least have to look at the situation. Then there are the dark horse teams. Oklahoma City has assets. Memphis has talent. Houston has young pieces. Orlando has defense and size. Teams like that might not be the loudest in the rumor mill, but they could build packages that force Boston to listen, and that is the problem for the Celtics. The market may be big, but the trade itself is extremely difficult. Boston cannot just move Jaylen for a random package and call it a reset. If you trade a finals MVP, you need a return that protects your future and keeps your credibility. You need picks, players, flexibility, and maybe even another star-level name. Anything less would look like panic, and that is why Jaylen Brown's value is both Boston's greatest advantage and biggest headache. He is valuable enough to bring back a major return, but too valuable to trade carelessly. He is talented enough that half the league would want him, but expensive enough that only a few teams can realistically build the right deal. So when people say, just trade him, they are missing the hard part. Moving Jaylen Brown is not just a transaction, it is a franchise-defining decision. Because the second Boston makes that move, there is no going back. They are not just trading a player. They are choosing a new identity, the future of the Celtics. For Boston, the next decision could define the next 5 years of the franchise, maybe longer. Because if the Celtics trade Jaylen Brown, they are not simply moving a player off the roster. They are ending one of the most important chapters in modern Celtics history. They are admitting that the Brown and Tatum era The same era that survived criticism, playoff heartbreak, national doubt, and finally delivered a championship could not stay together long enough to become a dynasty. That is a heavy decision. Fans may talk about trades like they are easy. Move this contract, add that pick, bring in that player. But when you are talking about someone like Jaylen, it becomes emotional. He was drafted by Boston. He grew up in front of that fan base. He went from a raw prospect with questions about his skill set to one of the best two-way wings in basketball. He became a champion in that jersey. So if the Celtics move him, the message is loud, the past is over. That would immediately shift the entire franchise around Jason Tatum. No more shared face of the team. No more debate about whose timeline matters more. No more questions about whether the two-star balance is perfect. Tatum would become the unquestioned center of everything Boston does. That could actually help in some ways. Sometimes clarity makes a team stronger. Sometimes a roster needs one voice, one hierarchy, one direction. If the Celtics believe Tatum is the player they want to build around for the next decade, trading Jaylen could allow them to reshape the team with cleaner roles and fewer emotional complications. But that only works if the return is good enough. Boston cannot trade Jaylen Brown and come back smaller, softer, or less dangerous. They need real value. They need players who can defend. They need shooting. They need toughness. They need pieces who fit Tatum, not just names that look good in a headline. If they get this wrong, the Celtics could go from defending their championship identity to explaining why they broke it apart too soon. And that is where Brad Stevens faces a brutal test. This is not just about talent evaluation. This is about timing. If he waits too long, the drama could lower Jaylen's value. If he moves too quickly, Boston might not get the best offer. If he forces Jaylen to stay, the locker room could become uncomfortable. If he trades him, the fan base may split down the middle. There is no easy answer. Keeping Jaylen also creates its own challenge. The Celtics would have to repair the relationship in a way that feels real. Not a staged media day smile. Not a safe quote after practice. Not a "we are focused on basketball" answer. They would need real conversations behind closed doors. Jaylen would need to feel respected. Tatum would need to feel supported. The locker room would need to believe the mission is bigger than the drama. That is hard to do once trust has been damaged. Because the season does not pause for emotions. The schedule keeps coming, the media keeps asking, fans keep reacting, every loss becomes evidence, every missed pass becomes a clip, every quiet moment on the bench becomes a theory. That is the price of unresolved tension in a championship market. Boston has always been one of the proudest franchises in basketball. The banners matter, the history matters, the expectations matter, and because of that, this front office cannot afford to drift. They have to choose a direction and commit to it. If Jaylen stays, they have to truly rebuild trust. If Jaylen goes, they have to truly rebuild the roster. What they cannot do is pretend nothing happened. Because pretending is how good teams slowly become unstable teams. And unstable teams do not win championships. The Celtics still have talent, they still have Tatum, they still have a strong organizational foundation, but this next move will reveal what kind of franchise they really are when things get uncomfortable. Can they protect the culture they built? Can they make the hard decision without letting emotions control it? Can they treat Jaylen with respect, even if the relationship is ending? Can they give Tatum the future he needs without destroying the identity that made Boston special? Those are the questions now, and the answers will shape the next era of Celtics basketball. The three possible ending. There are really only three ways this story can end. The first ending is reconciliation. Boston brings Jaylen Brown into the room, clears the air, admits what went wrong, and makes a serious commitment to moving forward. Jaylen accepts it, Tatum accepts it, the locker room resets. The Celtics come back with a chip on their shoulder and use the drama as fuel. It sounds clean, but it is also the hardest outcome to believe unless every side truly wants it. Public damage can be repaired, but private trust is harder. A player can say the right thing to cameras and still feel differently when the doors close. The second ending is the blockbuster trade. Boston finds a team Jaylen is willing to join, gets a serious package back, and officially turns the page. Maybe it is Milwaukee. Maybe it is New York. Maybe it is a surprise team nobody sees coming. This would give everyone a clean break. Jaylen gets a fresh start. Boston gets assets. Tatum gets a roster built fully around him. But clean breaks are expensive. Teams will want Jaylen, but wanting him and paying Boston's price are two very different things. The Celtics cannot afford to lose the trade. If they move a Finals MVP and get back less than elite value, the criticism will be brutal. The third ending is the worst one, limbo. Jaylen stays. The team says everything is fine. The front office smiles. The players give professional answers. But underneath, nothing is truly fixed. Every loss becomes a controversy. Every interaction gets analyzed. every rumor becomes louder. That kind of season can drain a team before the playoffs even arrive. And that is why Boston cannot afford to be slow. The longer this situation lives, the more control the Celtics lose. The NBA moves fast, narratives move faster, and once a team becomes known more for drama than winning, the entire culture starts to shift. This is no longer just about whether Jaylen Brown stays or goes. It is about whether Boston still knows who it wants to be. The bigger lesson: the Jaylen Brown situation is bigger than one trade rumor, one live stream, or one tense offseason. It is a lesson about how fragile success really is in the NBA. A championship does not guarantee peace. A max contract does not guarantee trust. A great duo does not guarantee friendship. And a front office can make the smartest basketball decision on paper while still damaging the human relationship behind it. That is the part fans sometimes forget. These players are professionals, but they are still people. Pride matters. Respect matters. Communication matters. When a player gives years of his career to one city, grows through criticism, wins at the highest level, and then hears his name in trade talks, that hits deeper than a transaction. At the same time, teams have responsibilities too. Boston cannot build only with emotion. The front office has to protect the future of the franchise. If they believe the roster must change, they have to make hard decisions. That is the cold reality of professional sports. But the best organizations know how to balance business with respect. They communicate clearly. They do not let silence create suspicion. They do not let rumors become the loudest voice in the room. Because once trust breaks, talent alone is not enough. For Jaylen, the lesson is also powerful. Legacy is not only about trophies. It is about how you handle conflict, how you speak about teammates, and how you move when the world is watching. For Boston, the lesson is even bigger. A winning culture must be protected every single day, not just celebrated after a parade. Maybe Jaylen stays. Maybe he leaves. Maybe this story becomes the beginning of a new Celtics era. But whatever happens next, one thing is clear. Loyalty in the NBA is complicated, and respect has to go both ways. Now I want to hear from you. Should Boston keep Jaylen Brown, or is it already time to move on? Comment 1 if the Celtics should repair the relationship, comment 2 if they should trade him now, and comment 3 if you think this drama has already damaged the team beyond repair. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, share it with another NBA fan, and subscribe, because the next chapter of this Celtics story could change the entire league.